go live.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, football fans. We're live on Jabulani Football. We're gonna use the first few minutes to share. So please go ahead and share. We have some interesting topics to go. We got some interesting topics to talk about. The African Champions League football is on today, and the UEFA Champions League was yesterday. How are you doing today, my dear brother Awa?
Not bad, not bad. It's been a long day. It's been a long day, but it's all good. Looking forward to watching Pyramids versus Mamelodi Sundowns.
For those who don't know, go ahead, bro. I'm sorry about that.
After watching Paris Saint-Germain annihilate Inter Milan yesterday, today is the real game today. I'm looking forward to it. That starts in about an hour and 25 minutes. So hopefully we're wrapped up before then, and gives me time to take my pen and paper and sit and watch.
Yeah. That's gonna be an interesting watch. So let's go ahead and share. Let's go ahead and share this feed. We're live on Facebook, Jabulani Football Network. We're live on YouTube, Jabulani Football Network. So let's go ahead and share, please. Thank you. We got some subtle music in the background. Let's see.
What a game that was yesterday. Goodness gracious me.
Yeah, that was, although it was Paris Saint-Germain, I would say that was a Spanish football culture against the Italian, which we actually saw the Spanish guys come on top. I'm talking about Luis Enrique, you know.
Yeah. I think they played a blinder. They played a blinder, mental blinder. That was what a way to motivate your team. I don't know if Enrique was onto it, but I suspect so. When I saw it, I thought, what a motivation this is. When I saw the banner of Enrique's daughter and Enrique, I was like, okay, these guys are playing for that little girl. That was one hell of a motivation. I swear to God. I don't think anyone anywhere in this world honestly expected that game to go like it did.
Not actually. The dominance was just too much. It was a one-sided game.
It got to a point I didn't see the third, fourth, and fifth goals. As soon as you went 2-0 up, I just became a little bit flustered. I thought, And the way the first goal went in and the second goal, there are ways when a team concedes, this team are not on it. Like DiMarco was like 2 meters behind the last center back. I'm like, what are you doing there, mate? What are you doing there? What is your role? What are you doing there? You are behind Achevi, about 2 meters behind Achevi, playing everybody else.
It's because of the run.
And then from the second goal, the deflection, I just thought, when things happen like this, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. When you concede the way that you were not ready to, or you didn't think you would, tactically flushes everything down the drain. But Hakimi Hakimi is on to Mo Salah for African Ballon d'Or.
Yes, we should talk about that now. I'm just finishing to share in some of the various WhatsApp groups I am a member of. Okay. So here we are live on Facebook and on YouTube.
Did you say you're live on Facebook?
Yes, and on YouTube. Let me see.
I'm not sure you're live on Jabulani. Not that I can see that.
Well, no, it's not letting me share over there because we still shut off for 2 months. Is it 2 months? We still cannot share on there until after. Hold on, but I can copy the link and then go on there and share. Okay, so I'm right there.
Whew, it is hot.
Okay, let me just make sure. I did share on there. Let me just make sure everything is. Okay, you might want to maybe cut off your music. Whenever you're ready, we're going. Let me know when you're ready.
Bear with me 1 sec.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, football fans. We're back on Jabalani Football Network to talk today about the African Football Champions League that goes on today. And we are also going to talk about various topics. We're going to talk about Hakimi, a Moroccan who won the Champions League yesterday for the first time with PSG. And we're going to talk about his impact this season in regards to that of Mo Salah, who I think both will be vying for Best African Footballer of the Year 2025. And today I'm here with my co-host, Awa. How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's a good day. A good day to be alive and doing what we like doing, talking about football.
So as I said, today we'll be talking about Champions League football, both in Africa and in Europe. We'll also be talking about the Cameroonian selection that will be playing friendly games in Morocco. We shall also talk about, Mo Salah? Yeah, we shall also talk about Mo Salah against Hakimi, who has had an impressive year so far with Paris Saint-Germain. Where do you want us to start?
Well, just to say not much about Mo Salah, but just to say, Hakimi has come leaps and bounds, hasn't he, since his beginning at the Real Madrid Academy. He's now one of the leaders at PSG. I think he's the assistant team captain. When Marquinhos is not there, he's usually the captain. I think after winning the Champions League, I think he's going to be the one that gives Mo Salah some problems when it comes to the African Ballon d'Or. Whilst Mo Salah's had a good season, I think winning the Champions League will be very significant for Hakimi, and considering how Morocco is performing on the continent, it's going to be very difficult for Hakimi to be dislodged from that position, really. And he played quite a key role yesterday.
Yes, actually,
he scored the first goal and that was very influential as usual. I didn't look at his stats, but I just think that from the game yesterday, but I just think that he was very influential, his role, and the fact that he is the one that scored the first goal, that was very important for the flow of the game. I think for me, definitely he's now the one to beat for African Ballon d'Or when that comes up.
Well, yeah, according to what he has done this year for Champions League, I think he has scored 4 goals. He's had an impact offensively, given the way we see PSG play. His movements also yesterday was very key. You talked about the first goal. Even before that first goal, it's his run into space that actually put DiMarco, into a difficult position. And then he finished scoring as if he was a center half. We should also remember that, center forward. We should also remember that Hakimi, on numerous occasions, has refused to return back to Real Madrid, where he actually started as a footballer. In the lower, in the academy. However, he has refused, to move back to Real Madrid and decided to play for PSG. Today, we see how that has paid off, given the changes that Luis Enrique actually brought to this team. So, as you rightfully said, he will be vying for that African Champions League, position against Mo Salah. But in my opinion, I think Mo Salah is a strong runner because of what he did this season. Not only in Champions League.
He is a strong runner. He's won the league. Hakimi has won the league. Hakimi won the league, won the cup, won the Champions League. He's got 3 trophies. Hakimi is going to the World Club Cup competitions. It's going to be very difficult. The guy can strip every trophy that is available. You never know. PSG might end up winning the World Club Cup competition. You never know. And yeah, as I said, they're just blowing everyone in the qualifications for the World Cup. And even though they were already qualified for AFCON, goodness gracious me,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
scores. I mean, when you watch Morocco playing in the AFCON qualifiers or in the World Cup qualifiers, it's like the gap between Morocco and the other national sides is enormous. It's enormous. You know, I just don't know. I don't. Yes, Mo Salah is going to be in there for the running. You know, Victor Osimhen will be in there for the running. He's also won a trophy, highest goal scorer. I think he's won the cup as well. So he's got the cup, he's got the league. Mohamed Salah's got the league. You know, I think it's going to be a tricky one. It's going to be a tricky one, but for me, definitely Hakimi. It was interesting, you know, yesterday. I know this is not our subject on Jabulani, but just an interesting one for me. You know, I like the mental side of the game. Yesterday, when I saw that banner yesterday of Enrique and his daughter before the game, I thought, goodness gracious me, what a motivation for PSG players. I know that somehow translated into their performance, you know. But yeah, that was a good one and very emotional one. It would have been terrible if they did that and then didn't win, you know. So I don't think they were going to lose that game the way they came out straight from the off.
yeah. It's.
Anyway,
I mean, it's been like that for PSG ever since. I think the turning point was the coming of the guy from Napoli. Uh, his name is very difficult to to pronounce. Kvacek, whatever his name is,
oh,
and
Kvaratskhelia.
yeah, and also the playoffs. I think when PSG finally got into, because they went through the playoffs when they finally got in, and also we should not forget the way Dembele has been playing. And as you said, the mental part of the game. This final, when I saw PSG score first, I did the second. I knew it was always going to be difficult for Inter because of the way they were playing, and they were not that effective even when they were trying to go direct. So Hakimi, yeah. Now that you talked about Morocco, the way Morocco has been playing, blowing teams off. I think Hakimi has a strong, he has a strong statement. Although Mo Salah, as I said, also, if you look at Liverpool winning the EPL this season, it was all Mo Salah. So it's gonna be a tough one. Let's see what happens as far as the African Ballon d'Or is concerned.
Yeah. So in terms of, I hope the African Champions League final doesn't pan out that way. I wouldn't like it. I know it's going to be a tight game, but it's between two African giants. I'm not sure if Pyramids are a giant yet, but Pyramids is now the third biggest club in Africa in terms of finances, behind Mamelodi, Sundowns, and Al Ali. You know, and the first leg was 1-1, and that was played in South Africa. Today they're playing in Egypt, so in Cairo. So it's home advantage Pyramids. That will be big for Pyramids. Yeah. So I'm sure you have followed Pyramids a bit.
Yes, actually, you were talking about the finances, and it's always good to put numbers. I think Melody Sundowns is somewhere around 35.4 million euros. That's their net worth, if I'm not mistaken. Al Ali, 28.45 million.
Yeah, market value.
I'm sorry. And Pyramids also at 22.25. So it's actually good seeing African clubs,
Yeah.
doing this good. And we're talking about the African World. I mean, I'm sorry, the world. How do they call it? It
Club
takes
World
place in
Cup.
America. Exactly. And for teams that participating is gonna be like more money for them.
Yeah.
So
I bet you that money is going to increase the domination of Mamelodi, Sundowns, and Al Ali, especially in Africa.
yes, because those are the two teams actually going to represent, and it's gonna be a lot of money. So that's why sometimes we do cry here that nations like Cameroon actually need to start thinking, thinking positively about improving their local leagues so that they can also benefit from these large sums of money. Because now the gap between these teams is just gonna be just too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is also, so there are 4 clubs going. There is also Esperance and Without Casablanca.
Yep. So
So
these teams.
yeah,
It's,
and Esperance, I think Esperance is the 4th biggest team in Africa. So you see, within the 5, you got 3 of them going to this tournament: Esperance, Al Ali, and Mamelodi Sundowns. So it's going to help with that Casablanca. That money is going to help with that Casablanca to raise their financial profile. Yeah, but I think Mamelodi, already being the biggest club, that would it will make them grow even bigger, as well as Al Ali as well. So
so now that you said that, let me just ask you this question, right?
mm.
What should other teams be doing, or leagues be doing, in order to narrow this gap? Because now it's going to be a big financial gap. It's going to continue expanding if other African nations are not actually getting themselves in a position where they can compete with these guys and go to such tournaments.
Well, I think it as well as the leagues needing infrastructure and the hardware and software, the skills to go with it. I think the clubs themselves need to take responsibility for professionalizing their setups, their structures. If you have been watching the African tournaments, club tournaments this year, there are three or four countries. Let's say the Maghreb countries are always present in these tournaments. But when it comes to the final stages, there are typically 3 countries that you see. There is South Africa, there is Tanzania, and there is Egypt. Typically, once you start going down to quarterfinals and semifinals, you're seeing Tanzania, South Africa, and Egypt. And that says a lot. And that ties in with the development of these countries in recent years in terms of the wider economy of the country and the focus on developing football infrastructure. So, and the professionalization of the league and the clubs, So I think if you look a few years back, despite the Cameroonian league struggling, Coton Sport stood out. Coton Sport was going to the quarterfinals, semifinals. That wasn't because the league was strong or was good. It was because Coton Sport was a structured team, professional, run professionally. Despite the difficulties within the Cameroonian Football Federation and the Cameroonian League, Coton Sport was still able to perform.
But that's actually some 10 years ago. So I mean,
no, not up to 10 years ago. I think just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Coton Sport was in the semifinals. They played, and even 3 years ago, Coton Sport played Al Ali. I watched the game live. Yes, you could see the difference in the level. You could
no,
see
5 years. Yeah, no, 5 years ago, I think Coton Sport was beaten by, is it Mamelodi Sundowns when they were
I can't remember the team, but they did really well in that tournament. But what I'm simply saying is, sometimes even when the league is not performant, if you've got a good structure within your club and you're very professional in how you manage and run the club, you can still perform. But the difficulty is you then meeting other clubs that are performing in better leagues, and then you would struggle against them. So yes, we need a better league, but also, like I was saying, you've got other countries where the leagues are really good. They are doing better than Cameroon, yet they are still struggling to meet up with the Tanzanian boys, with the South African teams, with the Egyptian teams. So it's also, you should have the talent pool as well, because you can have all that infrastructure, and it will take a few years down the line for you to start seeing those results come through, isn't it? So that I think there is a lot of work to do for all the other clubs, but at the end of the day, you only get a few clubs that get towards the finals or semifinals and finals. And that's when the real top clubs that are financially viable start making their mark against the smaller teams or the weaker teams, as it be. So in terms of pyramids, we did some work around pyramids.
Yes.
So Pyramids it's not an old club. Pyramids was founded in 2008 in the south of Cairo. When I say south of Cairo, about 100 kilometers south of Cairo, in a town called Beni Suef. But Pyramids is now a club from Cairo because they were bought over, and we're seeing the petrodollars
Yeah.
again from the Middle East.
But that was, yeah, sorry for that. But that was an interesting one because the guy who actually came from the Middle East, he wanted, I mean, there were certain things that he wanted to get done as fast. But then a couple of years after, we see the frustration and he decided to pull off from that. I mean, what do you say about that? Because he was coming
Well,
from
I do not
Saudi,
know
right?
I do not know the circumstances around that, but people do sell and make profit and move on, isn't it? Some people are only there short term. Like I said, the club was a club outside of Cairo, about 2 hours drive outside of Cairo. But now it's a Cairo club, and that's a different dynamics, isn't it? So it's a different economic dynamic. And you can see already, it's already the third club financially in Africa. So moving to Cairo was, I'm sure, an economic reason. But they've only won one title so far. That was the Egyptian Cup in 2024. The interesting thing about this club, as soon as they came up to the Egyptian Premier League, they were relegated. So they first came up in 2014 and were relegated immediately. And then they returned in 2016. Since they returned, they finished 9th. And since then, they've been finishing 3rd. And in the last 2 seasons, they finished 2nd. And at the start of this season, until a few weeks ago, they were leading the Egyptian Premier League. And I think what's happened is that their focus on the African Champions League has derailed their focus a bit on the side of the league. So they've concentrated more on winning the African Champions League, and that's affected their league performance. There is an interesting player that plays for this club, Fiston Mayele. I love him. He reminds me of Marima of Sintra. Rest in peace. You know, he is a very cool, calm guy, but he is always doing the business for Pyramids, you know.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to watching Pyramids. I don't miss their games. I watch Pyramid every week in, week out. I watch Pyramids. There's always drama around Pyramids, you know. I watched their last league game. I think they played Ceramica Cleopatra. Ceramica is a very good team. Even going down to 10 men, Pyramid still beat Ceramica 5-1 away. That was a serious game because Al Ali would have given them, you know, a wider gap in terms of the title chase. And they could not afford to lose that game. And you saw Pyramids turn on the screw. And I was super impressed. You know, I love them. I like Pyramids.
Yeah, and talking about Pyramids rebuilding and they actually moving to Cairo, you know, in 2018, Pyramids spent 40 million euros. They actually outspent teams like FC Porto, Watford, and Wanzhou, you know, the Chinese club Wanzhou that has been spending a lot of money. So that's how much money in 2018 that Pyramids put in their club.
There is investment going in, you know, and those guys, they're not bothered about selling players to Europe, and the players there don't care about going to Europe because they're comfortable.
And they also exploited the Brazilian market. They bought 5 players from the Brazilian league. And the billionaire, the Saudi billionaire I was talking about is Turkey Al Sheikh. You know, he was the one that actually spent that amount of money, you know, with Pyramids. Then he had to pull out due to some conflict of interest. So you see a lot of money being spent, you know, in these clubs. And then they're getting rewards also because they're making a lot of money now from, you know, the FIFA World Club Cup and from the African Champions League. So money spent, money well invested, they're getting their return. So that's actually very, very good for African football.
Yeah. Now, talking about conflict of interest, This is an interesting one. Mamelodi Sundowns in the Champions League finals won the first edition of the African Football League, which is what Europe was trying to put in place, European Super League.
Mm-hmm.
So the African Football League, they won the first edition, and there were some grumbles, around Cairo, around Patrice Motsepe being the CAF president and being the owner of Mamelodi Sundowns, and some favorable refereeing decisions and things like that. So there have been some questions about Motsepe's role and the achievements of Mamelodi Sundowns recently, and some refereeing decisions for them. But I don't want to get into that.
Quick question. The quick question. He's not the one actually running it. His son is the one running it right now.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's his money. There is a massive conflict of interest, 100%. Can you imagine if Florentino Perez, let's say Florentino Perez was not the chairman of Real Madrid, say Florentino Perez was president, say he was the owner, okay, and then he was also the president of UEFA, running the Champions League. Goodness gracious me, that's not going to work.
Yeah, but it's actually different. The way these businesses are being run in Europe and in Africa is actually
that will not happen.
That's why I said no. It's two different things, right? The way the businesses, football in Europe has actually evaluated at a level where they are past those type of problems. They way behind those type of problems. However, how many people in Africa, how many Motsepe would you see like in Africa willing to spend their money, in order to invest on football?
You say it's past that level. I think you always have these issues because look at the multiple ownership now that is happening in Europe, for example. Yeah, you're going to get clubs in the Champions League play against each other where the ownership is the same.
It's the same, yeah.
Do you understand? And things are going to happen. And it's going to happen as well with this FIFA World or Club World Cup, where you get clubs from the same ownership playing against each other. It's going to happen one day. So I don't think Europe is free from it. Yes, you would not get that happen in terms of an owner running UEFA and being a club owner. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to give up that role or sell that club if that was going to happen. But coming back to Mamelodi Sundowns, it's a very good side, packed with internationals, South African internationals. Since the South African Premier Soccer League was founded, they've won 15 titles, 6 cups, and they will be representing Africa at the FIFA World Cup as well as one of the teams. And they last won this competition in 2021. And like I said, they are the holders of the seminal African Football League competition, which technically is the biggest competition in African club football ahead of the Champions League. So it's the best teams that play in that competition. So yeah, so they are the holders of that, and their manager is Portuguese, former manager of Nantes, Delta, Athens, Esperance de Tunis. So he's been around. He's a very experienced guy. So it's going to be an interesting game. The first leg ended 1-1 in South Africa. So I am suspecting we're going to have a very tough game, and most likely it could go to penalties.
Yep. So that's going to be...
And like I said, the game starts today, 7 p.m. I think 6 p.m. I think. Is it 6 p.m. or 7 p.m.? I can't remember now.
I will tell you that in a minute. It's 1,300 hours. So it's in an hour's time.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. It's in an hour's time. So could you tell those, let's say, in Europe, where can you watch? Or for those in Africa, I mean, is there a channel they can actually watch these games?
Well, that's a difficult one. I think you just have to check on the CAF website, or I don't want to come here and put myself into trouble where I watch them, but I find a way. I find a way to watch them. I find a way to watch them. But just to cut it short, it's not publicity. If you ever staking, then you can watch it on staking web pages. It's available on some of those pages, so you can watch them there.
Yeah, I think I watch. If I'm not mistaken, where do I watch it? Well, I have numerous TV channels that I just need to scroll and look for, but I'm not sure what's one specifically. I mean, before the game, I usually go ahead and do a small research, and then I will fall on the games.
Yes, especially in the UK, people also have some of those. They've got some boxes and stuff that they do, and they're connected to a lot of channels and they watch it on there. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a very interesting game, and I think if you can find time to watch it, please do watch African football. I tell you, you're not going to see much different, but I bet you're not going to see the game you saw yesterday, one-sided. You're going to see a very interesting and tight game, just like you had Barcelona versus Inter Milan. It might not be 4-4, but I mean, what I simply mean is it's going to be close, it's going to be tight, and it's beautiful football played on beautiful pitches, packed pitches, and the atmosphere is absolutely brilliant.
Electric. Exactly. So now let's move on to another section. We're supposed to talk about international games, while countries do play friendly games. And we also going to talk about the recent lineup. Cameroon will actually be having 2 friendly games in Morocco. The recent lineup, we're going to dissect the lineup and talk about the players. So you've seen the lineup so far, right?
Yes.
Are there any players you don't know on that lineup?
There are players that I do not know. There are players that I do not know. There is a guy called Django who plays for Kortrijk. Kortrijk, I know, is in Belgium. They play in the Belgian league, and I think they're relegated this year, if I'm not mistaken. And there is a guy called Atemenge. I do watch the Israeli league, the Lumit League.
He's a midfielder, right? Yeah. Atemenge,
I am not. Yeah. Yes. He plays for Ashot. He plays for Ashot in Israel. Again, I'm not sure why they're calling someone from Ashot playing in Israel for Ashot. If you want to call somebody from Israel, I'm hoping that person will play for teams like, if not the top 2 teams, Hapoel Beersheva or Maccabi Tel Aviv or Maccabi Haifa. There is Netanyahu as well. There's Beta Jerusalem. Those are some of the good teams. Ashot is way down there. I'm not sure why you're calling someone. Maybe it's got something special. I do not know. I think Avom, I've not watched Avom play. I don't know much about him. Soko as well. And then obviously the 3 local guys. Obviously, I've never seen them, never heard of them. And one of the tricky things with this, is with friendlies. Again, our people back home, they seem to be doing analysis because they want to criticize people or favor some people or something, And I watched one analysis as well from North Algeria about somebody criticizing the manager for the selection. I'm not sure why they're criticizing Mark Brice for the selection. It's a friendly, and that begs the question, why we have friendlies,
Well, yeah, sometimes, people want to criticize because maybe they are creating content, the world we live in right now. You just criticize anything, even you have not watched the players, you just criticize. But my approach to such lists and friendlies is because it's just that hopefully I can watch these games and then watch these players play, because then I will have an idea of what the coach is trying to do. However, when I look at the list, Epassi, okay, we know that Epassi has played with the Cameroon national team before. Simon, whatever his last name is actually a difficult one. These are guys we see, we've seen at the national team before. However, Epassi is the one that has some games under him. So I expect maybe the new goalkeepers or those who have been sitting on the bench to be given a chance to play. We'll be having two games. Then from there, we can actually make an opinion. You know, as far as yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I don't really care about the opinion and that. You know, I think for me the important thing, like you said, is okay. Why these games? You know, these are games that count for FIFA rankings. You know, and friendly matches provide an opportunity for manager to test players, to try out tactics, to prepare for specific games, to help players, depending on which games are coming up, to acclimatize to those areas, you know. But a key factor to friendly games is to raise funds as well. Now, and I say this because when I looked at some of the analysis back home, the critics were criticizing Fecafoot for not being able to organize big friendly games for the national side. And obviously that criticism was going to Fecafoot and Samuel Eto'o. And I thought, blimey, what are you saying here? And they were kind of doing a comparative analysis, saying, oh, previously we used to do this and you do that. My question to them is, name 3 Cameroonian players that will make you travel 30 kilometers to go and watch Cameroon play. You know, yes, we used to have those big teams want to play against us, but they were playing against us for a reason. There was a market element to that. There was an economic element to it. You know, and if you look at this current international friendlies that are coming out, Cameroon's next competitive game is against Cabo Verde. You know, then we have Angola coming up. Now, according to the FIFA ranking, Cabo Verde is 72 and Angola is 87. Now, we're going to play Equatorial Guinea, that is ranked 92. That is not far from Angola, that is 87. And Uganda is 89. It's far, but not very far from Cabo Verde, that is 72. So the point I'm trying to make here is when you want to go and test some players or you want to try out something, you have to look at the context within which that friendly game is taking place. What's the purpose of that friendly game? If, say, for example, like we have friendly games that come up before the Premier League or before the French League, anyone, you would see that teams will play 4 or 5 or 6 friendly games before the league starts. The game that will make a manager worry, usually, is the last friendly game before the league starts, or the last 2. Because they will play stronger teams, and then they will look for a team that is not very strong. That team that is not very strong is the most important friendly, where they want to execute all what they've been practicing in that game. If it works, thumbs up. We're ready to go for the season. If it doesn't work, then the manager starts worrying. Now, you don't expect Cameroon to go and be testing its team against the Democratic Republic of Congo. You don't expect Cameroon to go and test this team against Algeria. None of those teams play like Cabo Verde. We need to find a team that has a similar culture to Cabo Verde. And I think Equatorial Guinea is that team. It's in a way, they play like Cabo Verde, you know. So I think it's the right game for Cameroon at the moment. And what those critics are saying, I cannot get my head around it.
I do.
Around it.
Yeah, I do agree with you because also we have these games on the 6th, on the 9th of this month. So they are saying that they want more serious teams to play against.
Yeah.
What are these? I mean, which serious teams are they talking about?
No, but the question
is, yeah, the reason I ask is because we just finished the league. The league is just over with, right? So you don't even have any serious teams that
exactly
have available players to come out and play a friendly in Africa. Okay,
exactly.
So what's the purpose?
I was going to say that when you're arranging these games, like I said, you have to think about the purpose of the game. And their complaint was that, oh, we haven't played Argentina, these big teams and that and that. What are they available? Where are Argentina players? How many of them were playing in the Champions League recently? How many of them are going to play in the Club World Cup? Now, if you want to call players like Andre Onana, Mbeumo, and all those other guys, the question you should be asking is Cameroon is playing their next competitive game in September. These guys are going into a career transition phase. Most of them want to move clubs. What if they come and play in a friendly and pick up an injury? I will not accept to come and play a friendly now if I'm hoping to get a move in the summer. So
And
there is
then,
no point.
I mean, the
There is
logic
no
is not, the logic itself is not even there, because now we see some of these clubs, they don't even have good enough or long enough break, because they will be coming for the FIFA club competition. So they wouldn't even have enough rest. So it's not the right time. Those that are talking about these things don't have a logic to back up their arguments. So for me, it's not even an issue.
True Lion, how many weeks do professional players have for holidays? Before you know it, you will start hearing announcements that players have started assembling at their clubs again already.
Yeah, they're supposed to go back in. They're supposed to go back in August. Then you have that FIFA club competition coming up, and America. Yeah, they're supposed to go back in August.
In July.
Okay, well, August is when the league starts.
Yes, yeah. So August is when the league starts, but before that, they've had a month of pre-season training.
Yeah, I do agree.
Touring America, touring Asia. So these guys have got a few weeks. They've got about 4 weeks, and then if you're piling up these internationals for them, then friendlies, then it becomes really difficult. Like I said, the main thing here is availability and the tournaments that need to take place. And the other key thing, is the economics of it. People think you just go and arrange a friendly. No, you don't just do that. There is a lot of money spent. And the processes that are put in place, the dynamics of the processes, that the logistics around arranging a friendly, it's serious. Some people do not know. Whilst you have player agents, you have match agents. So to organize these friendlies, most international sites have to hire a match agent who then becomes their liaison officer. You can organize a game and you don't have referees. You can organize a game and you don't have the media. You can organize a game and you don't have sponsors. So you need an agent to do this work for you. And it's a lot of groundwork that goes into organizing a game, And like I said, the marketing aspect of it is massive, So Cameroon cannot just wake up and decide to go and play England because, what's the economics around it? What's England benefiting? What's England in for it? In most cases, Cameroon has to be invited. And when you look at Cameroon's FIFA ranking now, it's very if teams want to go to Africa to get teams to play against, Cameroon will not be in the top of that list now. You're having Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, Senegal, Nigeria, Ivory Coast. These guys are now all ahead of Cameroon when it comes to the FIFA ranking. And most often, most teams would play friendlies against African teams before the Olympics and before the World Cup, depending on which teams they are going to face at those tournaments or play against at those tournaments. You don't just go and play friendlies for friendly's sake. Yes, you do have those friendlies, like when Cameroon played England at Wembley after the 1990 World Cup. You do have those friendlies, but now the calendar is so tight that most friendlies are geared towards preparing teams for tournaments. And until we have the World Cup coming up, it will be very difficult for Cameroon to secure friendly games against Latin American teams or against European teams. It's going to be very difficult. But the World Cup is not far. It's just here in 2026. So you go see Cameroon play friendlies if Cameroon qualifies. And even if Cameroon does not qualify, guess what? That will be good for Cameroon in terms of money making, in a way. Not the very good way, but many teams will want to play against Cameroon and Nigeria if those two countries do not qualify, to help them prepare to play against teams like Senegal, Cabo Verde, or any other teams that would have qualified. So we have to look at, not just criticize, but we have to look at the dynamics of how you go about setting up these friendlies and why the friendlies in the first place, the purpose of it.
Yeah, for me, I didn't take those concerns serious because I know there was no logic behind it, as you just tried to explain. And so, what do you think about? I think there was it was not Jean-Charles Castelletto. There was a player that said something on social media in regards to this list. And I think when the list came up, he said something about la polémique avec Hugo avec Marc Brice. I'm not sure if it was Jean-Charles Castelletto who said something. I mean, it just slipped off my mind. I cannot remember what was said. But what do you actually think about a guy like Eno Boris? Eno Boris actually plays for DC United. I've watched him. There was an argument where some analysts of the game were talking about him uh, having more time in that Cameroonian midfield. Maybe him coming like more time. When I say coming more time, I'm not talking about starting. I'm talking about like coming from the bench in order because he's a dead ball specialist. Do you think? Have you watched this kid enough, or do you think this kid is actually good enough to be having more time in the midfield?
I haven't watched Eno Boris a lot, but obviously from a single free kick that I saw, it showed that he had something in him in terms of a free kick. But I don't really know much about his other game because unfortunately, the timings don't permit me to watch MLS that much. But if you're a good footballer, you're a good footballer. I think the MLS is ahead of some of the leagues from which these other players are being called from. Like I said, some players being called from Israel and not the very best of teams in Israel. Some of the players that are being called up for the Cameroon national side. I know once you've called 20, you can give yourself space to fit in some players, squad players, for whatever reason. And with friendlies and not as well, friendlies are some of those games where agents can influence selections in a way. Because again, we're talking finances here, an agent could actually enter into a discussion with the manager and say, look, I have this player I would like you to look at. And, it could create possibilities for me, for him, for the player to move abroad or for the player to move teams, because international players are given more recognition when it comes to securing lucrative contracts. One of the questions they will always ask or usually ask is whether that player is an international, and you can have that could explain sometimes the presence of certain players or conspicuous players in the list of selected players. But I have no issue, with this selection. And in relation to going back to Boris Eno, I still need to watch a few games of him, but I have been told from reliable sources that he is a very good footballer. And I have no reason to doubt. There are some people when they tell you about a footballer, you have to stand up and listen, but you also have to find that opportunity to watch them play to be able to judge for yourself. So hopefully I will find time to watch DC United. Is he a starter? Does he play every game?
Does he play every game? He actually plays now more often. I would say he came in last season. Now he plays more often, but his impact is not as when he just started. I think when he just started in DC with DC, he scored. Has he scored also this season? So I'll say he's fair. He's fair. He's good enough player, but you always know that also performances and club doesn't transfer as good performances also for the national team.
And what I would say is slowly but surely, Cameroonian players are slowly moving up the ladder again. Slowly but surely, they're popping up around in some clubs in Europe. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, it will be very difficult for players from certain leagues to get into the selection. Because there are a few young boys who have signed in teams around second division in Europe. And within a few years, you're going to see them in their top flight clubs. And that's going to make it really difficult for players in the MLS and some teams to be called up. There was another player on that list, Ivan. He plays for Krivbas in Ukraine.
Okay.
He was another name that I looked at and I thought, okay, I'm not sure why he's in the list, but maybe the manager wants to look at him, But I do think that Cameroon needs to pay good attention to Boyomo. There is no way you are playing centre-back consistently for Osasuna, a team that was pushing to qualify for Europe in the Spanish league, and you're not starting for Cameroon. I've watched Boyomo several times. He is way ahead of the Ngados, way ahead in terms of football, So I think we need to start really giving serious consideration to him being the main man in that defense. Yes, War has been, but War is beginning to struggle a bit at Rennes. And that should be given consideration. If you are not starting consistently for your club, then questions need to be asked. Questions need to be asked.
Yeah, I've been a little bit disappointed about Christophe Wu. He started strong, so much potential, but he actually
he's still young.
Yeah, of course he's still young.
He's still young for a centre back, so there is time. There is time for him to improve. There is time for him to improve. So
yeah, we know how football is. A game or two can actually change your faith in the national team and how people do view you as a player, right? So
but I've never questioned his performances for the national team. He is always on the ball for the national team. I am just saying, if this situation at Rennes doesn't change, how is that going to translate with the Indomitable Lions? Is he just going to be starting every game regardless? I don't know. As a manager, I would have my doubts and issues around that. So just one for us to watch out on. But I didn't really give consideration to the entire list of the selection. What I paid focus on was on those names that I didn't recognize, and then start asking myself, why are they on the list? What's the reason? How old are they? And then it makes sense. It's logical. I'm happy with the selection for what it is and for the situation that we find ourselves in players.
Yeah, I mean,
we cannot go anywhere without me talking about Abubakar. Abubakar is on the list.
Well,
Abubakar is on the list. They've given Abubakar no rest. Why do you think he is on the list?
There will be no rest for Abubakar because we already know that Abubakar, he's out of the club right now. He doesn't have a club right now. And Abubakar is someone, I think he has decided that there is a record to be broken. And he wants to break that record, for the all-time scorer.
I'm happy with him. I'm happy with him to do that. The records are there to be broken. But why did they call him for this selection? What do you think the reason is?
I mean, he has that experience to help integrate those younger ones, and I think there are some key players that Mark Grace actually wants around him all the time that will help him put everyone on the same line. So it's more as a leadership role, and then, as I said, he's vying to look for his next professional team. So he doesn't need any rest.
I will stick with that one. I will stick with your last point.
Yep. He needs a team.
It's marketing. It's marketing. I'm still fit. I'm still healthy. I'm still young. I'm still ready to go.
Exactly. He's proven. We cannot say anything real bad about Abubakar. But to finish this session, because we're already on the 1 hour mark, I want us to break down the tactical approach of that UEFA Champions League game yesterday.
I'm not going to do that today, my brother. I'm not going to do that today. I'll stick with Hakimi only. I couldn't care less about European Champions League final. if you want us to break down the Champions League final game, let's break down Pyramids versus Mamelodi Sundowns later on.
Okay. Yes, we can actually break down later on.
I don't care about European football. I care about Hakimi.
Because there was so much. I mean, the way Hakimi plays, his 4 goals, and I think he has now about 5 assists, and his impact, that fluidity up front and all that. The way Luis Enrique actually fine-tuned that team in order to make use of, or to make Inter look useless defensively. I mean, that was just amazing. We've seen Barcelona do that, but Barcelona did that a little bit different with a powerhouse, although he's 17 years, with a powerhouse like Lamine Yamal. PSG had a different approach that was actually frightening. When I saw the way Inter Milan, their minds, their heart was broken and shattered into pieces. And as you said, the
issue there is they played a team that was different than any team they had played. And 2 things that PSG did was nullify Dumfries and then make DiMarco instead defend. So there was basically no Inter Milan attacks you on the flanks. There wasn't any way of them doing it. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Like I said, I watched the first half intensely, and then I dropped. I saw that this is not going anywhere. This is not going anywhere. The whole entire first half, all Donnarumma did was if there was a corner, he comes out, punches it. 1 shot on target for 90 minutes. Thuram. Nah.
And it was a weak one.
It's not worth talking about it. It's been a good day, brother.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of this session, and it's always a pleasure. I mean, talking about African football, putting our African footballers on the map, no matter where they are. Today, we talked about friendly games. We talked specifically about Cameroon, the current selection. They will be playing on the 6th of June and on the 9th of June in Morocco. So that will help them prepare. That will help prepare them for the upcoming World Cup.
That's the acclimatization part of it. Feel this climate, feel this environment. This is what you're coming to in the next 5 months. Yeah.
Exactly. So that then we also talked about Mo Salah versus Hakimi. Ballon d'Or. You brought in the name also of Victor Osimhen. Victor Osimhen did not have enough visibility. Of course, he won the Turkish.
You are only as visible as the TV rights that are available for that league, isn't it?
Yes, but a lot of people, I know the way, the mentality, the mindset of my African brothers, so I'm just speaking, based on that mindset, about Victor Osimhen. However, he's still one of the hottest center forwards this summer, and many big clubs actually. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's the hottest. He's the hottest.
Yes, and this is why we have this platform, isn't it? To promote our boys, to promote African football, and to encourage people to watch more of African football. So in the next 30 minutes, find a way of watching Pyramids versus Mamelodi Sundowns, and you will not regret it. You will not regret it one bit. You will enjoy it. It's high-level football.
Exactly. It starts exactly in 24 minutes. In 24 minutes time. So
and this will be the last time I ever miss an African Champions League final. It's not happening again. Whilst I'm breathing, I will watch them live.
Yes. Yeah. So it was a good 1 hour of football, African football, and our next topic. We shall actually put out our next topic. Hopefully tomorrow. I will share out the flyer by Wednesday so that I can let you guys know in advance, what we shall be talking about. Then please comment, share. Let's get this interactive. Let's, you can paste some of your comments, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, so that we can actually answer to these questions, and we can go back and forth with each other, help grow this channel and keep African football flying high. Any last comments?
No, just so our followers or viewers, please subscribe to Jabulani Football Network so that we're doing our live straight from Jabulani. Trust me, we're building something here, and you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy it.
Exactly. The growth will be steady. We're learning as we go, of course, on how to use these various platforms. But believe me, it's gonna get more interesting, especially with the African Cup of Nations coming up. So I think very soon we have to start profiling some of the teams, right?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much. It was a good 1 hour spent together, and enjoy your game. It's Mamelodi Sundowns versus Pyramids of Cairo, Egypt.
Mamelodi.
Mamelodi Sundowns. Are you going for Mamelodi?
No. Let the best team win, my brother. I'm not supporting. I love Pyramids, but let the best team win. Let the best team win.
Okay. So thank you very much, and enjoy your Sunday, man.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Till next time.